Well, an unfortunate thing happened on the way to doing my last show. My mic wasn't plugged in, so I have to redo the whole show, which kind of sucks because it was a really good show, and maybe it happened for a reason. I'm just going to go with that. That's Robert Phoenix, the Friday FARcast. So I apologize for those of you that listen live and you sat there and thought, what the hell, where is he? Let me tell you what happened. So sometimes I'm like the absent-minded professor. I have this new mic, and the USB cord for the mic looks like the USB cord for my phone charger. So when I plugged the phone charger into my computer to charge my phone, I thought it was my mic. So I did 60 minutes of me talking into my unplugged-in phone charger, which is why there's no audio for the show. And maybe it's there for a reason. I don't know. Maybe it didn't happen for a reason because I said some scandalous things. And now I'm going to have to try to... One time I was at Gaia. They were Gaiam back then, not Gaia. And it was my first interview I did with Regina. And it was so good. I thought it was great. Like I was really on, right? They loved it. It was kind of like, in some ways, an audition for the 24 shows that I did over there. And this guy, sweet guy, didn't have my mic plugged in. So we had to redo the whole show all over again. I was like, oh, God, man. I was so on. Story of my life. Well, we're back again, and I'm doing this show all over again. So the whole idea of the show and the theme is Saturn and Sagittarius and truth. Truth. Which is kind of the axiom and the maxim of the day. And I talked about how in the last show, a lot of this will be recapping, but I'll try to make it as fresh as possible. I talked about how last night I posted something on Facebook about clandestine wars and really how they're terrible for the morality and the soul of a country. You see, when you're not on the public record in fighting a war, it has this, first of all, it creates a field of denial, which is terrible. But second of all, it creates a disembodied kind of entity that will come back and haunt the country that is not accountable for its death and its violence. And I'm convinced of that. And the reason I brought that up is because Donald Trump, President Trump, is sending 1,000 troops to Syria. And he's sending a bunch of B-52 bombers to Syria. And the reason why is because the Syrian Liberation Army, if that's what they're called, the rebels, and ISIS got their ass kicked.
Let me check on that. Okay, I found this on the web for a Liberation Army called the Rivals. Take a look.
What is this? What the hell happened there? That was weird. That was not part of the program. Am I being hacked? Better shut everything down. Shut it down. Shut it down. Shut it down. It was almost like an Alexa moment, wasn't it? Hold on. All right. Oh, this was my cell phone. This is weird. Okay. I did not access my cell phone. I did not hit Siri. And all of a sudden, Siri decided to say, okay, I found this on the web for a Liberation Army called Arrivals. Take a look. This is weird. This is very weird. Strange. They got their asses kicked, which is this is what happened, right? I mean, you saw them. They left Aleppo with their tails between their legs, and they were escorted out by the Russians. And then those disingenuous white hats. Talk about fake news. How about a fake documentary? So that's why we're going back there. Because they want to flip Syria. They want Assad out of Syria. And Trump is he's doing what he's being told to do. Which is completely disingenuous because he basically alluded, and he didn't say, I'm going to pull us out of Syria and I'm not going back and I'm not going to support any effort at all. Because they create ISIS, right? They create ISIS, they send ISIS in, and they say they're going to fight ISIS, but what they're really doing is they're arming, aiding, and abetting ISIS so that ISIS can join forces with this other group, the Syrian Liberation Army, whatever they're called, and then fight Assad. They're not there to fight ISIS. The Russians did a really good job with that, and they kicked their ass, along with Assad and the Syrians. And Russia is doing it because they have assets that they need to protect in Syria. It's not altruistic. That's another thing I talked about in the last show is altruism, and I'll try to go back and talk about that, and how it doesn't really exist. But that's what happened. Now we're going back there to, finish the job, I guess, which could be the seat of World War I. So what I was talking about last night on Facebook and what I wanted to talk about today, what I did talk about today, and talking about for the third time, so I should be really good at talking about it, is what happens when we create these wars, when we enact these wars that have no moral compass, they have no moral justification, and they are not even on the record with the public. You see, because the representatives of this country who are supposed to represent us in our will have not signed off on this war. They signed off on a war with Iraq, and apparently this is still part of the same war. Even though we're not fighting the Iraqis, we're not trying to take down Saddam Hussein, who had nothing to do with 9/11, even though 9/11 was the purpose we went to Iraq. And Saddam Hussein had nothing to do with 9/11. Nothing. And yet they told that lie enough so that people believed it. Because people wanted somebody to fall. They wanted to see somebody hang. And that somebody was going to be Saddam Hussein. Didn't matter. Right? People just want justice. They wanted justice after 9/11. And Saddam Hussein became the scapegoat. That's exactly what he was. He was a scapegoat. And we've been there ever since. We've been in Libya. We've been in Syria. We're still in Iraq. We're in Afghanistan. We might even be in parts of Pakistan as well. You may not know that. Now we're getting into Yemen. We're getting into Yemen with the Saudis. Trump just sold the Saudis a shitload of Black Hawk helicopters. How about that? That's us. That's your tax dollars. Your tax dollars are going to the death and murder of Yemeni women and children. Just because Saudi Arabia might be running out of oil. Or just because Saudi Arabia needs to go in and take hostage of the Yemeni population. Because the Yemenis might actually be a threat to the dark hegemony of the Saudi Arabian regime in the Middle East. The Middle East is dominated by Saudi Arabia and Israel, and they are connected. They're connected. So it comes back to us. It comes back to the genocidal source. And it can come back to us with, again, I talked about this the other day, with people who have been traumatized completely traumatized by a war. Well, we'll take you in. Come on over here. Come on in our. Yeah, sure. We killed your brother and sister and your mother and your father. Whatever. Just come on in. We'll make it up to you. But the thing is that if you go back 30 years ago, when we might have had these, staggering regime changes, although we didn't have them that much 30 years ago, we might have had a Falklands Island, or we might have had, a Nicaragua or Panama where they forcibly removed Manuel Noriega because he wanted more money. Manuel Noriega wanted more money from the United States. He started to believe he was actually the president of Panama. He knew where every single body was buried as it related to the distribution of cocaine through Panama. He was George Bush's guy. And then he said, hey, I want more money. Because I got all this evidence, I basically can blow the lid on you. And they said, well, really? Well, we're just going to come down to Panama, stage an invasion, and take your ass out. Which is exactly what they did. That's a regime change, and that's a forcible regime change. Another great lie. Why Noriega was removed. But it's the same deal, right? And we're doing it all over again. And these people will come back to us. But again, 30 years ago, there wasn't always sort of the ability to discern or understand who was doing what and why. If you were some, poor person who was caught up in one of these quote-unquote civil wars. I mean, we can even go back to like Bosnia and Herzegovina, right? What happened there, which is another atrocity of war. And Bill Clinton had to be part of that war. He had to throw down, he had to put troops there. Because if he didn't, he was going to be impeached. That was the whole impeachment piece. Like, you're going to go do this. You're going to put sanctions on these people, and you're going to bomb the shit out of this place. Because we want to rebuild it. We want to come in and we want to have Rand and all these other corporations, Fluor, Bechtel, come in and rebuild this thing. It's money for us. But back then, people, there was the internet, at least. But there wasn't the ubiquity of cell phones and smartphones where you could get on the internet and cruise the internet and get information. One of the most powerful tools in the world, and most people fritter away on it by playing games or searching porn or whatever. It's a powerful tool. The smartphone, it's a really powerful tool. So you get one person with a smartphone in a place that is under siege or going through some kind of a regime change, and that person might have the acuity to be able to look on their smartphone and figure out who's doing what, and then share that information with everybody. That didn't occur 35, 40 years ago. If some conflict or strife or civil war was going on, there's a chance, good chance, that it was identified as one chieftain or one sultan or one leader or whatever, kind of going against another. Now that people can look on their cell phone, and all it takes is one, and they can say, "Oh my God, that's these guys are backed by the U.S. and the NGOs. They're an so really, this is another big piece with colonialism." Now that doesn't mean that people didn't understand it. There were people that did understand, but now the transmission of who does what and why can happen. And so you do that, and these people who become disenfranchised and displaced, they know what's going on. And you bring them here to the United States, and they're going to be pissed off and angry because they know that, we were the reason why. A lot of their people are dead. So this is how it returns to the genocidal source, just from that alone. Then there's the disembodied place where our own populace becomes angry, disaffected, and it becomes this reflection of the wars that we fight overseas that aren't accounted for, that are clandestine, not even on the public record,